Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jacob, and I'm the marketing coordinator at Preseem and your host for today's webinar. So without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce you to our speakers today. Beginning with Garrett Nagelhout. Garrett is the co-founder and CEO at Preseem. He currently leads sales, business development, and client relationships for Preseem. He has many years of engineering management experience, including managing an offshore development site in the Middle East. Thank you so much for joining us today, Garrett.
Thank you, Jacob.
Next, we have Nathan Fillmore. Nathan is a C-level executive with over 10 years in the wireless internet industry and over 20 years in business management. Over the last decade, Nathan has helped build one of the nation's premier WISPs. Over the past 2 years, Nathan has co-founded and currently leads Arden Alliance Management, one of the nation's top-rated 24/7 customer service companies in the WISP industry. Thank you for joining us today, Nathan.
Thank you, Jacob.
And last but not least, we are joined today by Jessica Doberneck, who is the sales and marketing manager at Arden Alliance. Jessica has a history of WISP marketing and has built and rebuilt WISP sales departments from scratch. She also designed new policies and procedures, incredible sales scripts, back-end workflows, automated communications with leads, and tasks for sales staff. Jessica is well-versed in managing and leveraging CRMs and manages her sales team with robust training. Thank you for joining us today, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob.
You're very welcome. And so just to look at today's agenda, we're going to start by taking you through what Arden Alliance Management is all about. We're then going to have Garrett take you through what QoE and Preseem is all about. We're going to have a look at using Preseem for support teams, and Nathan's going to show you some key features there. He's also going to talk you through his experience and Arden's experience with Preseem subscriber dashboard. And last but not least, we're going to finish off with the QA, where you'll have a chance to ask our presenters your questions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jessica, who will begin today's presentation by telling you a bit more about Arden Alliance Management. Take it away, Jessica.
All right, great. So Arden offers two main services. The first is our call center services, and then the second is our consulting or management services. Obviously, we'll be focusing a lot on our call center services today. Over at Arden, our motto really is to help pump the lifeblood into your WISP with these services. And we do that by simply caring and fostering confidence in your WISP. And we do that through our services. I want to tell you a little bit about our history. We have a little timeline there I'll walk you through. And I want to explain it because it says a lot about, and it explains a lot about who we are, where we came from, and kind of what we do. So Arden's owners are a group of guys that, have years of experience in the WISP industry and ISP industry. And to kind of get back to their original entrepreneurial roots, they teamed up and launched a small WISP together. They found a lot of success with this, and so they launched another one and then another one. After that third WISP, they started realizing and feeling like there was a lot of moving parts, and they had these 3 different call center staff and service support staff. And it was just a lot of moving parts, and so they thought maybe we can outsource our after hours or overflow to help manage this call center. So I started shopping around for call center services, but they couldn't really find one. And I think a lot of us in the WISP industry can agree that we really want to keep the local feel of a small, personable interaction. And so that being said, we just couldn't find it. And so we just built one ourselves. So they pulled together all the resources and started Arden Alliance Management, which was the call center for just these 3 WISPs. But shortly after that, they got a referral for a WISP that was looking for really our services. And we just couldn't resist the opportunity to help another WISP. And throughout this whole process, we had been doing consulting services. And I think it's part of the blood of our industry is we love helping each other out. And so we took on this referral, even though it wasn't the intention of Arden, it was to resell the services, but we just couldn't resist. So shortly after that, we got another referral and then another referral. And now here we are with quite a large handful of companies that utilize our services. And we're having a blast providing that and working with them. I share this with you because our management team, when you combine all of our experience in the industry, we've had experience in small WISP, large WISP, struggling WISP, successful WISP. We've kind of been in every facet of it. But the one thing we can agree on is that the lifeblood of your company is really who's talking to your customers. And at one point that's your installers, but it's your support staff and your agents that keep that lifeblood pumping throughout your whole WISP and keep the relationship strong with your customers. And so we highly and strongly value that customer experience. And we do because we've been spending the last few years perfecting that experience. So that being said, we do offer your inbound and outbound services for call center. And if it's not on this list, we probably do that too. The biggest thing is we want to make sure that we keep that intimate feel and that personal connection with our customers. And the best part is Preseem really helps us to do that. And so we're going to talk a lot about that today. And even though, we have grown a lot, I'm not going to give you our secret sauce, but we have not lost that intimate interaction with our customers. And we've made sure that Arden is built so that it's scalable to maintain that personable touch that all WISP owners, I think, thrive off of. And that's what makes us so successful. In closing, I want to touch on the 4 key values that Arden has. When Arden was originally looking for a call center service, we kept coming back to 4 main criteria, and it was this right here. We wanted a company that we could trust, a company that could help us grow, and that could grow with us, which was huge. And then the biggest part was we wanted a company that could really connect with our customers the way that we wanted to connect with our customers. And then in addition to that, we also wanted to connect to that company. We didn't want to be left in the dark. And then we also wanted to sit back and enjoy our WISP. And though we couldn't find it, we obviously built it for WISP by WISP kind of thing, right? But the best part is when Preseem came along and we noticed some of our companies were utilizing Preseem, which meant we were utilizing Preseem, it made all the difference in the world. And we realized it came back to these 4 core values. Preseem emulates all of them, and it helps us accomplish those values on our end too. Preseem is obviously a company we can trust. It helps you to grow your company, and we'll talk a lot about this today, but lowers costs, call times, call numbers in general. It helps you to scale your business. And then on the flip side, the most important side is making sure that we are keeping a good, solid connection with our customers, because that is the lifeblood of our company. And so that connection is huge, and Preseem helps us to do that and maintain a healthy relationship with our customers, which in turn helps us to enjoy our company. So kind of in closing, and to wrap this up, we at Arden, we have a lot of agents and they prefer to use Preseem. And really what it comes down to is we've seen companies use Preseem and companies not use Preseem, and there's a big difference. We'll touch on that a little bit more. So thanks, Jacob.
And now it's over to Garrett from Preseem. We'll talk all about Preseem as well as quality of experience, also known as QoE. So take it away, Garrett.
Thank you so much, Jacob. So let's start with, why does quality of experience matter? Why should you care about this, right? So quality of experience is all about how your customers experience your service. And that, of course, includes your network, but whether you like it or not, your customers will probably include their home Wi-Fi in that as well, because they just care about the end user device, what's happening there. And when you think about poor quality of experience, it's all about slow feeling internet. The bits are flowing, the connection is up, it just doesn't feel very fast. That's a sign that you have poor quality of experience. And when your customers notice this, they really have 2 options. They can call you, or they can live with it. And it's actually better if they call you, because in that case, your support team can do something about it, right? You can try and figure out what's going on, try and resolve the issue, and all that. If your customers live with it, they might leave you bad reviews, and they might eventually churn if something better comes along. So that's definitely the one you don't want. And so really the key then is, how do you figure out which parts of your network are delivering a good experience and which ones are not? And if you think about the traditional network monitoring tools, the NMSs of the world, typically based on SNMP, ICMP, that kind of thing, super important tools, but they're really focused on telling you the status of your network elements as reported by them. And just because an access point says it's up and everything is good, doesn't mean it's actually delivering a good experience to your customers. You might have one with interference, for example, which might be quite hard to detect causing a horrible experience for your customers, and it just doesn't tell you that. And this is where quality of experience-based monitoring comes in. And the way this works is it actually measures the data flowing through your network to find all the bottlenecks that are impacting that end user experience and are making things feel slow. And I'll go into more detail on how we do that. But with that data, you can now proactively find really almost any kind of issue in your network, anything that's causing things to slow down, whether they be backhauls, access points, a connection to the CPE, or even in-home Wi-Fi. Any of these things you can pinpoint by measuring this data. And you can also use it reactively when your customers call in to deal with any, various kinds of support calls, the slow internet calls, that kind of thing. And the beauty is you can really put yourself in your customer's shoes. Do they actually have some kind of issue affecting their experience? Or maybe they're just maxing out their plan speed all the time and they need a higher plan speed. That's a good upsell opportunity. And if it is a poor experience, is it that the whole access point is having issues? Is it just them? Is it the in-home Wi-Fi? If it's in-home Wi-Fi, maybe you have a managed router service you can provide, and that becomes an opportunity to upsell there as well. So it's both good for revenue and also really focusing on customer happiness here. Now, the way I'll give a bit of an overview on how Preseem works in a deployment. It's fairly straightforward. There's a couple parts to it. First, there's an inline device that all your customers' traffic goes through. That's where we measure all those things based on QoE, and then there's the shaping and optimization half we do as well, which we'll talk about happens there as well. We have appliances. You can often use your own hardware as well if you already have some servers. You can have one, multiple, doesn't really matter, depends on your network. And each one acts as a layer 2 transparent bridge. Then there's a cloud component. The cloud component is really sort of the heart of everything. That's where all the metrics get logged to. That's what you log into to see, all the various dashboards, status of your access points, subscriber dashboard, all that stuff. And then last, we often integrate with various billing systems as well. Pretty much all the popular ones in this industry we integrate with. And really the key things we're after is what are your list of subscribers? What are their IP addresses and what plan speeds do they have? And that lets us do the shaping automatically as well. So our goal is to put as little information in Preseem. If you have it in your billing system, we'll just reuse that, make it really easy. The other thing we often get from various billing systems is a bit of insight in your topology. What towers do you have? What access points are on them? And that lets us map out what subscribers are on what access points are on what tower. And that's really important that when we find bottlenecks, we can pinpoint where in the hierarchy that issue might be. And so speaking of bottlenecks, again, this is the part that you really want to figure out. Whenever you have some kind of QoE issue, there's going to be some bottleneck causing that. It could be a congested access point. It could be in-home Wi-Fi, backhaul, anything like that, anything that's in the path of the customer's traffic, you can detect this way. And whenever you have a bottleneck, you have a piece of gear that has more data coming in than it can transmit. And what's going to happen is it's going to buffer those packets first and eventually start dropping them. And so now you've got a customer that has less bandwidth, but a higher latency and packet loss, and that's why things feel so slow. Now, the nice thing is your existing TCP traffic on your network actually has built-in mechanisms to detect this. So for example, if TCP detects that a packet is dropped, it sends a new one, it sends a retransmit. We count those and I can detect all those areas. And we find that the most common thing that we see with anything with Wi-Fi, access points is latency tends to go up first. And that's one of our key metrics. And the way we measure that is a bit unique. It's quite different from ping. It's something called TCP round trip time. And it measures how long it takes for a packet to go from the inline device downstream. So not the internet side, just your own network. And it measures how long it takes to go from the inline device to your backhauls, access points, CPE, through home Wi-Fi, right to the end user device, like a phone or a laptop or something. And then TCP on that device sends back an acknowledgement packet saying, yep, I got that, the item's traveling back. And when that gets back to Preseem, we correlate those two and say that took 50 milliseconds, 100, 200, whatever. That's one latency sample. And it just keeps doing that over and over again. Every 10 seconds, we log all the samples to the cloud. And now you can look at any one subscriber and see if they're getting a good experience or not so good experience. But at this point, you don't know why yet. But this is where the topology comes in that I mentioned on the previous slide. Because we know what subscribers are in what sector and what sectors are in what tower, you can compare. So we have charts that show you all the latencies for all the subscribers on an access point. If they're all high, you know it's a common bottleneck, the whole AP, for example. And then you can further drill down to, is it overloaded? Is it underperforming? There's lots of other stuff you can do. And if you have, for example, only one subscriber is high, you know it's specific to that sub. Check out your signal strength. If that is bad, see if you can address that. If that is good, think Wi-Fi in the home. And that's really it. That's from a support perspective, the bits you need to know to troubleshoot exactly what's happening with that connection. And as I mentioned, ICMP ping is not the same thing. A couple of the key differences is ping injects packets. This doesn't, which means that ping tends to get prioritized either higher or lower. It's kind of depending on a piece of equipment. So it's not really a good indicator of your true latency of your traffic. And also ping tends to stop at the demarc point, right? It can't go into the home, whereas round trip time follows that packet wherever it goes into the home as well. So it's much more applicable for finding these kind of issues. Now, the other half of Preseem is the optimization side, the shaping side. And the reason this is so important is the way you enforce your plan speeds has a really massive impact on the end user experience when they max out that plan speed. And the reason is that the simple shapers, think microtics and radios and that kind of thing, they're really designed to make sure your customers don't exceed their plan speed. And they're very good at that. But they have very simplistic queuing mechanisms inside of them. And so when somebody in a household watches Netflix, for example, and they max that plan speed out, the queue starts filling up, packets get buffered, latency goes up, and typically not just for it, but for everything else as well, because it's often a shared queue. And now your streamers are hurting your gamers, for example. So if you're getting regular calls about my internet is slow, and it turns out that, well, you max your plan speed out, it's probably your shapers that are to blame for that call. And that's really the problem that Preseem optimization solves. Our goal is not to limit traffic artificially. We want to give them as much bandwidth, you know, as they paid for, kind of thing, but make sure that even when they reach that limit, it still feels fast. And there's a couple different ways we do that internally. For one, we classify all the flows as bulk or interactive based on how much data is going through there. Small interactive flows like VoIP, gaming, browsing, that kind of thing, automatically get prioritized. They don't get queued at all. They just go straight through. And then the remaining bandwidth is allocated fairly amongst all the big stuff, like your downloads, your upgrades, your streaming video. Each one gets its own queue. We apply active queue management to keep the latency nice and low. Really important for Zoom calls, things that are interactive and a bit higher bandwidth. And again, really the goal is to reduce those support calls and make things feel faster for your customers. I guess one more thing to mention here is we don't do deep packet inspection. We don't care what a protocol is. It doesn't matter to us at all, neither for figuring out if the quality of experience is good or to shape it. We just look at how big a flow is and look at them that way. That means there's no complicated rules. It's set and forget. We get your plan speed from the billing system, turn the shapers on, that's it. Depending on net neutrality in your part of the world, very friendly with that as well, because again, we don't do nothing specific to a protocol. Encryption doesn't matter either, so it's very, very useful for that, very sort of future-proof based on that. And so if you turn those shapers on, as I mentioned, it can really have quite a substantial impact on the support calls that you get, and Arden Alliance figured this out as well, of course. This is one of the case study we did one of our customers in New Zealand, Taylor Communications, and the beauty is they kept really good metrics of not just how many calls they got, but what type, and they were able to pinpoint how many calls they got, and they call it flatlining of people maxing out their plan speed, and that was the only problem, the only reason for the call. And you can probably guess where they deployed Preseem. Yep, that was in July, about halfway through, I'd say, based on that number. And most of those calls just tended to disappear. And the few that you do still get like that, they tend to be the ones that really just need a higher plan speed. Maybe they have large families or lots of streamers or something like that. And those are the ones where you can, again, pinpoint that there isn't an issue. They just need a higher plan, and you upsell them with confidence that you're both able to, and that the demand is there as well. So if you do all those things, right, you enable the Preseem shapers, you find all those bottlenecks, you start fixing them proactively, it can have a pretty substantial impact on the bottom line as well, and in a couple different ways. On the increasing revenue side, we consistently hear reduction in churn. We've heard 20, 30%, various ranges there as well. The upsell opportunities, again, for your support team, both the higher plan speeds, maybe if you have managed routers to position those when that's appropriate. On the reducing support cost side, you're going to get fewer calls and they're easier to handle. And this is something that Arden Alliance has really mastered, right? They've run, Preseem in lots of companies now. They really understand how to do this, and they've learned as part of that yes, they're going to get fewer calls, they're easier to handle, and they're actually going to give you a discount if you are running Preseem because of that. So it's quite substantial. And then on the network saving side, we have lots of reports showing you what access points are having issues, which ones are not. That can help you plan your budget better as well, right? What access point you need upgrading now versus, well, no, this one I thought was busy, but it's actually okay, so we can defer that one a little bit. And then there's also some tools like sector shaping. You can help to defer some of that CapEx spend as well if you want to run it a little bit longer like that and still deliver a decent experience to your customers. That's it for my part of the webinar. I'll hand it back to Jacob again.
We'll now move on to Arden's CEO, Nathan Fillmore. Take it away, Nathan.
Thank you, Jacob. And so I think I'm going to begin with the fact that I'm not only coming from the stance of being a co-owner in a couple of WISPs now, and we use Preseem on our networks, but also coming from the standpoint of being one of the owners of Arden Alliance Management, coming from the call center and the day-to-day basis of seeing WISPs that utilize Preseem and those that do not. There are, of course, many different uses for Preseem, as you're aware of, as earlier explained, from the traffic mitigation to taking a deep dive into your customers' connections. One of the many uses, and one of my favorite pages in Preseem, is this main one right here on this slide that you're looking at, showing you an overall view of how your entire network is doing. Our engineering department at Arden Alliance uses this to gauge how they are doing in optimizing a network. Obviously, the less red they see, the happier they are. High red, or red being high latency. And I know that one of our networks, a WISP that I own, we frequently see no red for months at a time, and we take great pride in that. There is, of course, a lot of work that goes into accomplishing that, but with Preseem, it is the tool that we use to help diagnose those bottlenecks, those latency issues on our networks. Our engineers not only do this for our personal WISPs, but they do it for other WISPs that choose our engineering services as well. As previously stated, Arden Alliance has a 24/7 customer support center, and it is an understatement when I say that our staff here loves Preseem. In all honesty, it takes some of our new staff a little while to be able to interpret and learn what they are looking at and looking for, but when they do learn it, they can't imagine troubleshooting without it. In fact, whenever we onboard a new company, I'm pretty sure I audibly hear a cheering from my staff whenever the company is utilizing Preseem and a sigh whenever the company doesn't. Not only that, we've known for years of experience in using Preseem that it makes our jobs in the call center quicker. We work more efficient as it gives us another layer of visibility into that customer connection. Because of this, whenever we bring on a new company to support, we actually give them a discount with us whenever they have Preseem on their network. The main customer overview page that you are seeing in this slide has so much good data in it, and it is what we look at quite often, from peak download and upload speeds to data usage and latency. I would say that with all the calls that we get, and again, we do billing, sales, support, engineering, the number one longest support call in terms of time spent on the phone that we receive with all companies is probably the dreaded speed complaint issue. Now, for this reason, and something we actually pride ourselves in here in Alliance, is that we take a deep dive into the customer's connection to see that if A, is there actually a speed issue, and B, if there is, what is causing it? It could be a customer's router, a simple layer 7 issue, or it could be the sector or backhaul in the network, which if it is, then it's definitely going to be causing issues with other customers. We use parts of Preseem like the image shown here to help us figure that out. If what a customer is saying matches up with what we are seeing on the network. If they say something like, we only get 10 megs all day long with your service, and we look here, we can determine that what they are seeing on their side and what is actually going on are two different things. Or we may be able to determine that they are maxing out their connection with their speed plan. Again, another good reason why we want to integrate Preseem with your billing system. And these maxing out of customers do happen quite a bit. Diagnosing speed complaints with customers can sometimes be a difficult job. A lot of the times you have to rely on the customers to help you out, which can be difficult, but with Preseem, it makes our jobs much, much easier and helps us come to a resolution quicker than ever, which I think we can all agree is good customer service. If we are seeing high latency at the customer level, if we believe that it is not localized at the customer's location, our staff escalate it to our wireless engineering department or your engineering department. We move up the network to the AP to see if there's a broader issue at hand. We take a look at the customers on the access point here quickly to see if there could be something else going on. Then we move to the backhauls if necessary. If we believe there is an issue, then we take action, move frequencies if needed, plan for future upgrades, etc. All of this can be done and planned using Preseem, and this is all available with the Arden engineering team if the customer or the company does so utilize our services. And so why do we do all this? Why do we have Preseem on with our WISPs? Why do we enjoy using it from Arden's standpoint? I think the answer is quite simple, really. It's for our customers. Without our customers, none of us would be here. So with Preseem and the tools, the traffic mitigation, the in-depth look at the customer's connections, the ability to visually see where your network is suffering, and Arden Alliance's expertise with working with these customers firsthand, our engineering staff, combined with our knowledge of the ISP and the wireless ISP industry, I truly do believe it's a winning combination, and we're happy to have this relationship. So with that, I will pass it back on over to Jacob.
So now is the Q&A portion of our webinar. So if you haven't already, please type in your questions in the Q&A tab on your right, and Garrett, Nathan, and Jessica will chime in to answer them. You know, this is a great opportunity to actually ask your questions directly to the CEOs of two fantastic companies. I don't know how often you get that chance, so I'd say make the most of it now. We do have one question at the moment, and it comes from Mark. And this is for you, Nathan. He's asking if your call center supports French in terms of a language.
At this time, we do not. We're currently in all of North America, so we do have Spanish at this time, but not French.
All right, thank you. Any other questions out there? If not, we'll just wait a couple minutes to see if any flow in. And here's one from Zori. Do you work with any WISPs in urban environments? So that could be for both of you, I guess. But Garrett, if you want to start, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we see a variety, right? We see this some of the 60 gigahertz microtics, for example, maybe some of the closer ranges. We see longer ranges. Doesn't really matter a great deal. Yeah, it's a variety, really.
And for Arden, yes, absolutely. We not only support WISPs and every kind of manufacturer out there and their hardware, but we also do have a few urban WISPs from fiber to DSL to MDUs only. So a wide range of companies we are currently supporting.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your answers. Any other questions out there? You know, I think the thing is your presentations were just so comprehensive that people are just going to want to revisit this recording after it's done. Maybe go to the company websites to learn more. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, now is your opportunity to ask them. All right, we have one more coming in, it looks like. All right, so this is from Jason. Are there metrics available which show the impact/source of interference?
So the impact, definitely yes. If you, and I'll have some visuals handy here, but so what happens when you have interference is you start seeing much less throughput, of course, and you start seeing higher latency as well. And the latencies tend to be much more erratic. You see some customers are really high, they're bouncing up and down and stuff like that. So in our dashboard, it's actually quite easy. Once you know what to look for, you're like, yeah, that's interference right there. And the other thing we help you with is we have this comparison tool where you can compare your access points. So let's say a 5AC, Gen 2 Rocket Prism at 20 megahertz. Based on the tens of thousands of access points we see worldwide, we know exactly how much throughput that kind of AP is supposed to be able to handle. And we let you compare how you do compared to that. So what tends to happen is if you see high latency and also fairly erratic, and your throughput is well below, we call it the orange dotted line. It's the line that shows a typical throughput. And when you see that, then you know it's very likely to be an interference issue. The source of it, we can't help you with that yet, but there's lots of things we're working on in the future. But you can definitely tell it's really quite obvious when that happens. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that response, Garrett.
Mhm.
So here's a follow-up question from Zori. So back to looking at sort of an urban environment. Are there any special problems that you encounter in an urban environment? Anything that's maybe different from a more rural region?
It's a good question. I think the technology tends to be a little bit different, right? They got more higher density, shorter ranges and things like that. But fundamentally, it's not all that different. Maybe more interference, but it really depends, I guess, how many competitors you have around and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't see it being vastly different from the more rural ones. Again, a little different equipment and ranges and stuff, but from using Preseem as a tool and finding the bottlenecks, you still need the shape, you still need to optimize, still need to find those issues. So again, same concepts there.
Awesome. And Nathan, did you have anything to add to that?
As far as latency issues, I agree completely. We look for those that high latency and those bottlenecks, and we that's our starting point. Actually fixing it is a whole nother thing sometimes, but that's where the hard work comes into play. And I think a lot of the knowing the manufacturer of the equipment and knowing how certain technologies work in environments, but again, Preseem, without it, it'd make our lives a lot more difficult. And it gives us that visual. I'm a very visual person, so to have Preseem and all that stuff staring right in the face, I absolutely love it. It's fantastic.
Glad to hear it. Thanks, Nathan. So our next question comes from Ben, and he's wondering, this is for you again, Nathan, and maybe Jessica, if you have some insights. But he's wondering if your call center is mainly comprised of native English-speaking people. He says that currently his call center, that's not the case, and it causes some confusion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of our staff are right in the United States. Some of them do have Southern accents, so that may kind of be a little difficult to understand, but most people love them. But yeah, we're all located right here in the United States. We have multiple office locations, one here in Arizona where I live, one in Arkansas where my CTO lives. But yeah, we're all based here in the United States.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. Another question for you, Nathan.
Sure.
So this comes from Derek, and he says he uses Preseem and he loves it. He's interested in Arden because of your familiarity with Preseem, so you as a company. And he's wondering what your billing systems are.
So we do things a little bit different than some of the other call centers out there. One, we have a very close relationship with Sonar. We personally use Sonar on our networks, but we're familiar with almost every single billing system out there as we do support them. One of the issues that we saw when we very first started Arden was that other call centers would not actually log into things like Preseem. They wouldn't log into their billing systems, and they would. I remember one issue we had, or that I heard of was a customer had no internet, and so they scheduled a service call. The text went out there, and it turns out they were just delinquent. If they had logged into the billing software, they would have seen that. So we love logging in and being a part of the same ecosystem that the WISP does. We don't think of ourselves this third party consulting group or call center. We like to think of ourselves as an extension of your company. We have internal chat so that everybody can chat with us live right then and there. Yeah, as far as billing systems, we're familiar with all of them. Again, we personally use Sonar on our networks. We're very happy with it, and yeah.
All right, thank you for that answer.
Sure.
Another question from Derek, and this one is for you, Garrett. Derek is wondering if Preseem holds any webinars to help train techs and crew on how to use Preseem to its fullest potential.
Yeah, webinar's not a bad idea actually on that. I haven't done one of those yet. We do sort of two parts to that. Any new customer we onboard, we have a bunch of steps we walk you through. We really guide you through the process. And one of the things we do as part of that is a training session personalized to your network, which is much more useful than looking at a random network for somebody else, right? Because we can dig into specific problems you have. And then depending on, we tend to find on the size of the company, if you have a smaller team that does a bit of everything, it tends to be one training session. Our larger customers, we tend to have multiple. We can do one specifically for your support team, for example, as well, to focus just on some of those dashboards and really zoom in. And often I ask people to bring in examples of calls they've had recently to really show how Preseem can help with some of those. If you're an existing customer of ours and you feel you could use a refresh, just reach out to our support team. I'm one of our trainers, so I like to be hands-on, but there's a bunch of us doing that now. We also have training videos. So definitely, if you need more training, let us know. We're always happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you, Garrett. So this next question comes from Lori. And Jessica, I think maybe you'll have some insight on this. But Lori is wondering if the data within Preseem can aid in marketing planning.
Well, I'll touch on that. I'll let Preseem touch on that too, but I know that we at Arden, we offer marketing services, whether that's online marketing services or social media, all of the above, web design, logo, anything. So anything your WISP might need as far as marketing services, definitely reach out, because we've been there, we do it ourselves, and we've done it for other people too and other WISPs. So yeah.
From Preseem's perspective, there's a couple things we do now already, and there's some interesting things we have in a roadmap as well to help more and more with that. Really, our goal is to take sort of all the roles different people at our customers have and try and make dedicated dashboards to make their lives easier. And there's certainly certain parts we focused on right now, but marketing is one that we have some to go into and more stuff we want to do. Some of the things you can do today, which is sort of sales/marketing, is understanding some of our customers use Preseem to do install verification. So you get a new customer, use whatever link planners you have to see what access point they're going to go on, and then they use Preseem to look at things like oversubscription ratios and is the latency currently good or not. And you can really help figure out if you can take that install right now or not. And there's different strategies for different companies. Some say take the install at any cost, we'll fix it later. Others say, well, we won't take it unless we know it's going to be good. But you can really use that latency and sector status data, both current and historical, to make those decisions. The type of things we like to do in the future that we're sort of actively discussing is all kinds of things like what are customers that, today you can already tell based on support calls what's a good upsell potential for various reasons. We want to give you lists of customers like that as well. So I won't go into too much detail, but that's the kind of area we're going to continue to innovate in as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Garrett. Just wanted to quickly call out Sean, who said in the chat, Preseem does a great job training and are always available. Great company to deal with. So thank you for those kind words, Sean. Coming up on our last question now, unless anyone else has any others, make sure to get them in the chat as soon as possible. But this last question comes from Ben. And he says, or is asking, does Sonar version 2 work well with Preseem?
It does. It's actually starting to happen pretty regularly now. We've got a Slack channel between a Sonar team and our team as well. And I just, yesterday we did one, today we did one as well. It's pretty straightforward. We synchronize behind the scenes to do the conversion, and it's pretty smooth.
Awesome. Well, I do not see any other questions. So it looks like our presenters have done a very good job in answering all of them. Thank you once again, Jessica, Garrett, and Nathan, for sharing all your insights. And a big thank you to everyone in the audience who joined us today for this webinar. For more information, you can go to our websites. So our Preseem website is preseem.com, and Arden Alliance website is ardenalliance.com.